Hey, Kage back again. Today we're gonna talk about Square Enix trying to make Final Fantasy 16 the one game that would pull them out of a shitty situation. So let's get into this article first. So Square Enix has lost nearly 2 billion in value since the launch of 16 in June, and the new report has caused doubt on the company's ability to recover. Shares in the company have plummeted nearly 30% since Final Fantasy 16 came out on June 22, closing on September 13 at their lowest point since May last year. The PlayStation 5 exclusive sold 3 million copies during launch week, a figure that sparked a debate online about whether it had met Square Enix's sales targets. Square Enix told IGN in July sales of Final Fantasy 16 were extremely strong, and insisted that the game has sold well relative to the PS install base. Selling 3 million copies on a launch day for a PS5 exclusive only at a time when still a lot of people were missing out on PS5 is pretty damn good. But the problem that I have with Square Enix and Final Fantasy games is that the games are good, yeah, but it's usually used as a recovery game, so to speak. Like, they have these couple of projects that completely flop, are uninteresting, or just outright bad, and then they hope that this one Final Fantasy they will spring up will be enough to outweigh the losses of multiple games. That's way too much pressure to put on a single game. It shouldn't be a single game that keeps the company floating. It should be multiple successful games instead of just one game that is extremely successful. It's not gonna always work. There might be this once in a while a time where it is like that, but it's not gonna always be the case. And with that, they might not be satisfied with 16 sales because, it didn't pull off as much as they needed to cover the asses with their previous failed projects, like Forspoken, for example. That was a complete and utter disaster, and it still got a DLC, for God's sakes, wasting even more money on a game that shouldn't be. It's ridiculous. But let's continue the article. IGN sources familiar with the performance of 16 confirmed sales had slowed considerably since launch, but that the game was not yet considered a disaster. Early in September, Square Enix announced the Final Fantasy will have 2 paid DLC expansions and confirmed the PC port was initially in development. So, expanding it to PC will boost its sales, obviously, because a lot of people have PC and they don't prefer to play it on PS but to play it on a PC. And now they're gonna expand their customer base with having a PC version of the game. The DLCs might also help. I, for one, look forward to the DLCs. I like the main game, which was fine. But we'll see how the DLC will be. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're meh. But we'll see. A new report from Bloomberg painted a bleak picture of Square Enix, which reported a sharp profit decline in August. Analysts told the publication that 16 failed to make up for the poor performance of previous Square Enix flops, such as Marvel's Avengers and Forspoken, and mobile games that were shut down soon after launch. Well, like I said, you cannot hope that one game will out-earn your costs for the other games that completely failed. Sure, you can try to do that with a single game, but that's stupid. It's brainless, like idiotic. You would have to create near the best product in the whole damn year for it to be anywhere close to the fact of getting it to pull off sales higher than the cost of other big games or any other failed projects. I mean, if you have smaller failed projects, then sure, it's fine. But when you have like big projects like 16 or like Marvel's Avengers wasn't Forspoken by the graphical quality they had, and they obviously spent a lot of money on that. So and it flopped. So obviously there was a lot of expenses on those games, but you can't expect a single game to pull that off. Like, for example, with let's say Like a Dragon series, or as they used to go by, Yakuza. They were smaller games comparably to 16, but whenever they do release one, it is successful. And it's those multiple success games that make it so the company is still alive and prospering, instead of, we're gonna make some games, if they flop, they flop, we're gonna make one big game and boom, that should earn enough money to out-earn anything we lost. It's completely ridiculous. The root of the problem, sources that told Bloomberg, is that producers were given full reign over the scope and direction of projects whose goals can shift without warning. The upshot of this is volatility in the quality of the final product. Square Enix has a new CEO, Takashi Kiryu, who intends to reduce the number of smaller games in the works to focus on big budget games that have a greater chance of making an impact on the company's bottom line. Square Enix declined to comment. We'll see how the new CEO does, but focusing on just big games can also be detrimental to the company, because it's oftentimes the fact that you have these smaller games in between that keeps your company afloat while you make some really successful big games. But if you only focus on those said big games and they become Forspoken again, you risk of your company going down. That is not necessarily a good thing, to focus only on big budget games, but if you make them successful, then yes, it might pay off, but it's a very risky thing. Apparently, there's a rebuild of development practices currently being worked through. One source close to Square Enix told IGN that Kiryu has called for change across the company globally, but that change will take time. Yeah, but there's nothing about what that change might be, so some of the upcoming Square Enix games include Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Star Ocean The Second Story R, and Foam Stars, and Final Fantasy XIV expansion Dawn Trail. Personally, I'm waiting for the expansion for 14. I've been playing 14 for a couple of years and it's good. I just wish the events would be back like they used to be, where you could get tombstones for exchange for certain mounts or whatever in the event, instead of these finish 3-minute questline and you get your mount or whatever. Rebirth, also waiting on it, since I'm currently playing remake of 7. Star Ocean, where I get iffy graphically, mainly because the background is 3D and the graphical quality of the characters is sort of like pixelish, so I find that kind of bit weird that the background is fully like 3D modernized graphics and then you have pixel characters, but that's my own thing. But in the end, I went off here talking about games in general, but yeah, in the end, point being is Square should not bang on the fact that one game will outsell the cost production of other games that failed. They've always had these unrealistic expectations of Final Fantasy games, and this just shows that they were hoping 16 would sell so much that it would cover their asses on Avengers and Forspoken. But no, you shouldn't bet on that. You should just make decent games, and if they don't work out, then you shouldn't put all your hopes on a single game in a year that will outsell everything you messed up throughout the year. But that's all for me, guys. I'll see you guys next time.